Hello, I just wanted to talk to you about my Icom IC 718. Now, I've had the 718 for about 18 months or a couple of years maybe. I bought it second hand and I bought it to go in my second shack at my partner's home. And I ran it there for quite a while. It's been used probably largely on data modes, but you know, I've used it for a single sideband and I've also done quite a bit of listening with it. I became aware that it had a very noisy receiver. Now, initially I put this down to the vertical antenna I was using at the other QTH. Ultimately, I replaced that with a half-size G5RV, so a wire antenna, a horizontal antenna. That was still fairly noisy, but then I put that down to the antenna wasn't sighted ideally. It was very much a compromise antenna. I tried to keep it low profile and so on. But a few months back, I replaced my Kiwi SDR remote receiver that I ran here in the shack. I replaced that with a Kiwi SDR2, and I put the original Kiwi SDR, which was still working fine. Just had to change the fan in it, actually. The fan was noisy, the cooling fan. But I changed the cooling fan, put it in the other location, and so I was able to, you know, listen from here remotely or from anywhere. And I soon became aware that on the Kiwi SDR at the other location, the noise wasn't there. It wasn't nearly as bad. In fact, my partner's location is quite a bit higher up than where I live here, and I think the height above sea level was helping some aspects of HF reception. So the antenna up there was performing surprisingly well. But it wasn't performing well on the 718, and every time I was up there operating on the amateur bands, I found the receiver to be very, very noisy. So 718 is now back down here. Here it is. I've replaced 718 with my Icom 7000, and it's been a revelation. The receiver's much better, much quieter. It's much easier to hear signals, particularly on the amateur bands, but all through it's much better, and it's on a par with the receive of the Kiwi that's up there, which uses the same antenna. So when I'm not at that location operating HF, the antenna switch to the Kiwi. When I'm up there operating HF, obviously I switch it to the HF radio. So I've really made the decision that this 718 is going to go. I'm going to move it on. I'm going to sell it. You'll have seen a video of me doing some broadcast band shortwave listening with it. So you can draw your own conclusions how you think it performed. Now, you'll be aware, as I am aware, that this looks pretty much identical to the Icom R75 communications receiver. And I always fancied an R75. But this 718's put me off rather. Now, I know the receiver is different in the R75. I don't know how different. Certainly the appearance of the radio is very, very similar. So you'll have seen also I did RF power test on this, and this is putting out full power pretty much on all of the HF bands. It did expose another quirk of this radio. This radio has a percentage power output feature. It has a meter that gives you from 0 to 100%. And I perhaps unreasonably assumed that 50% on the meter would equate to 50 watts out. It's a 100 watt rig after all, and 100% would equate to 100 watts out, but it doesn't work like that. I could never get this radio to show more than about 60% output power, but I've tested it here on a dummy load, and it's putting out, when it's showing that 60-65%, it's putting out a few hundred watt of it, putting out a full 100 watts. So that's another quirk of this radio. It's a little bit odd. This radio has the noise filter fitted, the DSP module. And I've opened this radio up. I've checked the DSP module is there, and it's correctly connected, and it is, but it has never worked. It's never worked with this radio. The 718 didn't come with a DSP as standard, and from what I've read, the DSP is not that brilliant. So maybe it wasn't as great a loss as it could have been. But that was another issue with this radio. So I'm guessing that the module itself is faulty. It switches in, but all it really does is reduce the volume from the radio, the audio volume, so much to it pretty much makes it unusable. I found this radio performed okay on data mode, on FT8, on 20 meters and 10 meters, but for SSB applications, particularly on the lower bands, it was far too noisy, and as an AM receiver, it was pretty noisy as well, and you had to continually fiddle around with the RF gain control and the attenuator and the preamp controls to try and get some sort of reasonable reception, and that's something I just don't have to do with the Icom 7000 that's up there now. So that's a quick story of a radio that I wanted to get on with, really, because I like Icom gear. Didn't really get on with it. This one's in quite good condition. It's certainly a very robust, well-made radio, but this one is just not for me. So I don't know if you've had any rigs like that. Most radios I have quite a lot of trouble getting rid of because they appeal to me in one way or another. I've still got quite a few HF transceivers, but this one, even though a lot of people are really, really keen on these, is not for me. The Icom IC 718, there it is. You're not likely to see it in the shack here much longer, but I just thought I'd let you know my reasoning behind that, and thank you for watching.